Hey everyone, welcome back to the BritHick. This is episode 30 with myself, Connor, and Aaron as always. We're on a tight schedule today, so we're going to skip the pleasantries and get straight into the meat of it. So, Aaron, do you want to let everyone know what we're going to be covering today?
Yeah, so on the back of your suggestion earlier in the week, we're going to be discussing film and TV adaptations of various other media, predominantly. So normally it's going to be things like books, comics, and then potentially talking about kind of manga into anime potentially down the line as well. Are there any kind of main ones that you'd want to kind of like touch base on to start with?
I think a good one to start with because it's had a lot of mixed reactions, I guess would be a mild way of putting it, would be Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'll be the first person to say I've not read any of the books, so I'm not coming at this as from the standpoint of someone who's an expert on the novels at all. But obviously I understand was it up to season 4 they were going off the source material of the book?
I believe it was the end of 4, maybe beginning of 5. Because of the pacing of the books is different to the pacing of the show in regards to like the different plot threads.
Okay.
So some of them like got to the end of their plot thread in the books like midway through 4, and then some of them didn't get to the end of the books in like 5, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've checked.
Yeah.
But so it was kind of across that period. It wasn't like a hard line across everyone's plots at the same time. It was kind of staggered.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things with Game of Thrones where, yes, it was very rushed to the end, and you're like, "What the fuck is happening?" kind of thing. But supposedly, George R. R. Martin told them the final plot points for the series of books. So, and people are like, "Oh, the end was crap because of what happened, not how it happened." Apart from the fact that obviously the pacing just went like really quick. But like the whole thing with Daenerys like going mental and all of that stuff, people were shitting on the showrunners because they wrote that she went mental. And it's like, well, as far as I'm aware, that plot point was given to them by George R. R. Martin.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What I'm interested to find out is, because obviously he's taking so long to release the books, and everyone's kind of waiting to see like what his version of it is. Judging him as a person, not like Matt, I don't know, obviously him particularly well, only like from passings in like interviews and stuff. I'm wondering whether or not he's going to change his original ending now because of how badly it was received.
Yeah, really interesting point actually.
Because it's a two-way street. Like it wasn't finished when they started it.
Yeah.
And originally it was going to be like, oh, it should hopefully be finished. But think about how long ago that was. He hasn't released a single book.
No.
Like, it's a decade. Like, it started over a decade ago, and not a single book has been released. It's like, will one ever be released? I don't know. Like,
who is he? Axel Bloody Rose?
Yeah. Well, this is it, isn't it?
The Chinese democracy of fantasy writing.
I think it has been compared to that before as well. But
insane.
I mean, yeah, obviously it was received poorly. Like, was it you that said that you've never seen another cultural phenomenon that went downhill so quickly that it's just been erased from the collective consciousness?
It might have been me. Like, I might not have phrased it exactly like that, but because that's very. I say that's very eloquent. I can be eloquent, but maybe I wouldn't have put it like that. But one thing I did say is, it's obviously once it is finished, I've never had the urge to go back and rewatch it, which is unusual for me.
Yeah.
And I did really enjoy. Like, I'm not even one of those people who falls into the camp of like, oh, I absolutely hate the last season. I think there were things it did very well. I actually think the sacking of King's Landing was one of the best episodes of the whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
of the whole season 1 to the end.
Yeah.
But I think there were certain things which they fell into fan service a little bit, which I was like that, and coupled with it feeling a bit rushed. So there was all the big hoopla over the oh fuck's sake, what, I can't remember the name of the episode now, but the big battle with the White Walkers.
Oh, I don't know the episode, but like the Battle of Winterfell.
That's it. I forgot the name of Winterfell. And I thought that was an underwhelming episode, to be honest. I think it fell victim to the hype, which was obviously, you can't blame the episode because it's not a sentient thing, but I think they hyped it up too much.
I feel like they went down the wrong route of who should have been the big bad at the end.
Yeah.
They had two big bads, didn't they? They had King's Landing and the Lannisters, and they had the White Walkers. And they kind of had to sort one of them out before the end so that their last few episodes could focus on one.
Yeah.
And instead of it being, I don't know, the Lannisters fall, like Cersei falls again into her own hubris and gets murked by Arya instead of her killing the White, I can't remember his name, the king of the White Walkers.
Yeah.
But it went the other way round. That I don't know. I was half expecting that they were going to lose at Winterfell, then be caught up in King's Landing, held there by the Lannisters, then Arya would kill Cersei, maybe with Jaime's help. Then, because of that power vacuum, they'd be allowed in for like a final King's Landing against the White Walkers at the very end of the season.
Yeah.
And then there'd be like Daenerys helping with the dragons, and then maybe you would see that she'd be falling to the Targaryen madness at that point.
Yeah.
But obviously it was exactly the opposite way round, is that they got rid of the White Walkers first to deal with the King's Landing stuff in regards to the Lannisters and Daenerys last.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, they had to do it. You can't have everything happening at the same time. But yeah, it ended up being at the Battle of Winterfell, the big bad got murked, just like straight up.
Yeah, I really like
it.
It was like it was an entertaining bit of television, but I just thought it was so anticlimactic, and it's like, realistically, could Arya have actually killed? Like, should she have actually been able to kill the king of the White Walkers that easily? I was just like, I remember just being like, okay. Like, that just felt very fucking rushed, and like, oh yeah, obviously that character's become really popular, so let's do this. Like, really good character arc otherwise, but I was just a bit like, yeah, okay, at that.
Yeah, I don't think that she should have killed him. Like I said, I think she should have killed Cersei. And then maybe Sam should have killed the King of the White Walkers, because I feel like that would have been a better character arc for him.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that discovered the obsidian glass blade to start with.
Yeah.
But it's that thing, we're discussing it, and it's fucking fan fiction at that point. Like, we're coming up with our own theories about how we felt like it should have been like this because it was better, but that's not how it was. It was done the way it was done, and then that's it. So I think a justifiable gripe is things that weren't tied up, like things with Podrick and Gendry.
Yeah.
Like things like that just weren't resolved. And there are parts of the books that they just couldn't do because it wouldn't work. Like do you know about the whole Lady Stoneheart plot?
Oh, I did before, but I won't lie, I've completely forgotten.
So I forgot. This is how long it's been. I've forgotten the character's name, but it's the matriarch of the Starks. So the mum,
Yeah.
Ned's wife. After she dies at the Red Wedding and is thrown in the lake, she like washes up, and the first introduction to the Lord of Light, not with the Red Priestess, with the guy with the eye patch that dies and like reanimates himself. They reanimate her, but she ends up being like a wraith almost.
Oh, okay.
Like an almost supernatural being that kind of does what Arya does in the TV show.
Okay.
With that, she has the vengeance plot, and she goes round and like goes after the people that betrayed the family. So I think she kills Walder Frey, but I think she kills Brienne as well.
Oh,
or like there's like a she holds them hostage and like does a faux trial. But I don't know. I can't remember. I haven't looked into it since. Looking into that kind of stuff, I think I stopped like season 6 because by that point it was obvious that whole subplot was just like being moved into other characters.
Yeah.
So like Arya in the books, if I remember correctly, is still in Essos.
Okay.
Like she hasn't gone back to Westeros, so that's how early her plot has stopped in the books. But yeah, Game of Thrones is a weird one because obviously it started alongside the books, and then they had to kind of find their own way, and that's where people got fucked up with it.
Yeah.
I think if they could have kept the same pacing and had a couple more seasons, they would have been all right. I don't know why all of a sudden they had to finish it.
Yeah.
If HBO got cold feet about it or something, but whatever. It works differently to like the way that manga and anime works, because if anime is going to a serialized comic, the anime will stop until the manga comes out, and then they'll carry on.
Right. Okay.
A lot of the time, the anime won't go ahead of the manga. I think Attack on Titan was like that, which is why there was such a big gap between the first season and the second season. Because I think they ended up waiting for it to just the whole thing to be nearly done, and then they kind of worked their way through the rest of it. But yeah, so it's weird because they only had half the source material compared to a lot of the other ones that I can think of where they just have the whole lot, and then they pick and choose.
Yeah.
It's like Akira had the whole thing pretty much there to be able to condense into the film. And I can't remember. I think it's that they do the beginning and the end of the film, but the middle bit of the books, they don't do it. They kind of like thread it so that it's the beginning and the end together.
Right. Okay.
Just because I think there's 9 books, like not 9 comics, 9 full graphic novels of Akira the story. So they need to condense it. I mean, it's still 2.5 hours long, but they needed to like condense it down. One that I was thinking of, which is quite interesting because it's just the way that it, similar but not, is the reaction to Lord of the Rings trilogy compared to the Hobbit trilogy. Obviously,
funny enough, that's what I was thinking of as well.
Because same director, same team, same style, same source material. That it's they're Tolkien books, but the reaction to the Hobbit was like so much worse than the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'm actually in that boat. To be fair, like I didn't hate the Hobbit, but there was so much extraneous stuff they kind of added into it, and it's like that didn't. Why have you done this?
So I think that's the general opinion on it is that Lord of the Rings was 3 separate books diluted down into 3 films, whereas The Hobbit was one arguably smaller book than any one of the 3 Lord of the Rings books that they've then
100%.
tried to expand into 3 films as big as Lord of the Rings, when it was never meant to be like that. Like, The Hobbit is meant to be a small story for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, The Hobbit could have been 1 3-hour movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been better as 2.
Yeah, but I mean, if you really wanted to get like a lot of the stuff from the book in, like you could do it in 3 hours, like in 1 film. You didn't need a trilogy. It just felt like an exercise in like, oh, let's make another franchise kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
so I think that they would have got away with it being the cut-off point should have been when Smaug got killed.
Yeah.
So that's the end of either he gets killed at the end of the first film, or he comes out of the cave at the end of the first film. So then you've got the battle at the beginning of the second film, and then obviously after that you've got the I've forgotten his name. What's the dwarven leader's name?
Oh,
gone out of my head. But the corruption of him would be act like
2.
1 into 2, and then you've got the standard act 3 at the end. But obviously that didn't happen.
No, they really did. They really did rinse the material on that batch of films.
Yeah, so
because I read The
that
Hobbit when
they
I
didn't
was,
need to do.
Yeah, like I read The Hobbit when I was a kid, and just like definitely there's loads of things here that were not in the book like at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would argue, my opinion is read The Hobbit and watch Lord of the Rings first, and then read it, because that is a dense set of novels. But The Hobbit is a lot easier to read.
So, do you know about the aims of the 3 sets of books that Tolkien wrote in regards to the Middle Earth stuff?
I'm not sure, but I'm guessing it's like, is it meant to be like to do with like ages of the reader?
Yeah, so they were written for his children.
Yeah,
and if I remember correctly, it was like Hobbit was 8 to 10.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings was 12 to 14, and then the Silmarillion was meant to be 16 to 18.
Right.
Bearing in mind that there are doctorate students that can't read the Silmarillion just because it's like too dense a text. Yeah. So yeah, when you see about that, it's like that's some advanced reading for like a 12 to 14-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are many 12 to 14-year-olds that can read it perfectly fine, but when I tried to read it when I was 12, 13, my dad had like a first or a second edition of the trilogy in one book.
Oh, okay.
And I think I got to I got past Weathertop. I think it was like they were just about to. I think Gandalf had just battled the Balrog. After that section was when I stopped because I just couldn't carry on reading it.
Yeah, it's that hard going, man. I never managed it. And
the Silmarillion's worse. It's like pages and pages of descriptions of areas before anything even happens.
Yeah. I think that's the thing
It's
as well.
mad.
Like, it's just that, not to toot my own horn, but like, I'm not adverse to like, well, I'm a high level reader. I would say it sounds weird saying that at 30, but I mean, as a kid, I would have been considered a high level reader. It's
Yeah.
just they're just like so. You almost have to fight your way through the text. It's just like fucking hell. Like, it's difficult. Like, I found that recently, like trying to read or maybe I just found it boring. I was trying to read Portrait of Dorian Gray. And I was just like, oh my god, you're really having to fight this text here.
It doesn't flow.
It's just like, obviously they're classic. Like, I'm not slating the Lord of the Rings by any means. Like, but it's a particular type of writing. It's like, okay, you know, you have to be. It's a commitment.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where when with fiction, I don't like having to really sit and concentrate. I want to. When it comes to descriptive language, I want something that's a little bit more simple.
Yeah, you just want it to be vivid without being. You don't want it to be convoluted.
Yeah, I don't need it to be overly descriptive.
Yeah,
I just want it to like be very quick to elicit a vision or an emotion in regards to descriptions of places.
Yeah,
so that you can focus on the story progressing. Whereas, like, I mean, to be honest, I probably read more like non-fiction than fiction stuff. But yeah, it's in regards to fiction. If you're trying to get across what something is, I prefer it to be succinct and to let my own imagination kind of do it.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty
Like,
of reading, isn't it? It is building that picture in your own mind. It kind of makes it a personal experience to everyone, to every reader.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the big gripes about, whether fairly or unfairly, about book to TV or film adaptations. It's like, well, that's not how I imagined it. It's like, well, yeah, but it's not how it might be how someone else imagined it. Obviously, it's a tricky one, like, especially if it's a book or a text that you love, and then obviously once you've watched the visual, it's like it's kind of hard to like reimagine that how you initially interpreted first, like in terms of like how characters look and stuff like that. And this is just broadly speaking about any kind of like novel to film adaptation.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, obviously, it's not as difficult with graphic novels because obviously it's there in front of you. But sometimes even things like movement can throw off how people think it's going to be.
Of course.
Doggo causing a ruckus.
Wow. Go on.
Because my case in point for like another one is Watchmen.
Oh yeah.
So Alan Moore, local lad to us, seen him walking down the street a couple times. Like, obviously don't want to make a big faff about it. He likes to be kept to himself. But it's like, oh look, it's Alan Moore. But obviously he hates every adaptation of any of his books. So yeah. But in particular, Watchmen, I watched it at the cinema and I felt like it was lacking, even though it was a long film. Certain sections of it felt disjointed and rushed, just because there's so much going on. But then I managed to get hold. This was before it got released, so I think there's a version that's available in Europe now, whereas it wasn't before. There's like a full extended cut that's about 4.5 hours long of the film. And what it is that, have you ever read Watchmen?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you've got the main story and the main characters and stuff, but in the story there's another story that's a kid reading its own comic.
Okay.
which is called Tales of the Black Freighter. So the animation style in those panels is different, and it's about a pirate that gets shipwrecked, and gradually loses his mind and stuff, and you find out certain things about it, and it ends up tying into the main story, what's happening in this comic. And they, for the film, animated these scenes, so it was an animation in a live action film.
Yeah.
But for the theatrical release, they cut all of the entire thing out, including other bits. Like, obviously, they cut the film down itself, but they removed this entire section.
Right.
So this 4.5-hour version has Tales of the Black Freighter as the comic put back in it. And the way that it's placed and the way that it's in there is a perfect palette cleanser. So the film flows better having all of that stuff in, because whenever something gets a bit heavy and you need to contemplate it, or like it gets to a certain point in the plot, like something quite large happens, it goes to the animation like a completely different thing.
Right.
So it takes your mind away from that part, and then you focus on that for a bit, like for 5-10 minutes per time, and then it goes back into the main film again. And obviously the film is very long, and it's like a mission to watch it. Like, you're investing 4.5 hours like to watch it.
Yeah.
But I feel that version of the film works better than the shorter 2.5 hour version of it, because of the fact that they've put that in it, which allows you to be able to go away. It's like mentally you're going away from the film and then going back in again. And it's one of the very rare cases where I feel like that is much more true to the source material than the one that got released.
Yeah.
I guess that's what people are saying about the whole Snyder Cut versus the Whedon Cut Justice League, aren't they? Is that the Snyder Cut feels more true to the films that were leading up to that point compared to the Joss Whedon version. But I haven't seen either, so I can't say. I haven't watched any of the DC. Either. Yeah, I haven't watched any of the DC films. I think I saw Man of Steel once, and I haven't seen anything after that.
I always find, like, does the Dark Knight trilogy count as DC? I know it's DC, Batman is DC, but do those count as DC films?
They are DC films, but they're not part of
that universe.
That universe, yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, the DC films that I have seen, I don't know, there's just something about them. I think they always just fall a bit flat. I'm not basing it on, like, I haven't watched all of them, but I don't know. We saw Aquaman when that came out, and I just thought it was like a pure, like, popcorn film, which I suppose to an extent most superhero movies are. I say people probably want to crucify me for that, but you know.
No, I agree. Like,
yeah. And that's not a criticism. That's not a criticism. You know, I mean, they serve a purpose. They like that. Like, and again, not to be like, oh, the Dark Knight trilogy, all the Joker, all like those aren't traditional superhero movies as they have come to be at all. There's a bit more, and I don't mean it's in a whole big brain. Like, there's a bit more to them. They're a bit grittier, and there's a bit they're more grounded in themes of like reality.
And yeah, when we're saying grittier as well, we don't, because there's this whole thing about Man of Steel was gritty, and it's like it wasn't gritty. It was just dark. It wasn't grounded. It wasn't grounded in reality because it's Superman. Like, you can't have that.
I think the best way I can describe it, the best way I can kind of explain it, in the Dark Knight trilogy, and I know they're not connected, but also like similar vibe in the Joker, there are consequences to what is happening.
Yeah,
and it's something you could relate, not as in like you can relate to, like, oh, I could be Batman, but it's like, oh, I can imagine this happening in society, and what would happen because of that. Whereas like just to pick something out of thin air, not to and I don't mean this as like a criticism, like Age of Ultron. Is that going to happen? No, I don't think so. You know, it's like it's very entertaining, and it's like it's a kind of, you know, those movies are for like you want to switch off, you want to enjoy what you're watching. You know, like it's entertainment, and that's, I don't mean it as a dirty word. Like I think some people turn their noses up a bit or get a bit upset when you describe things like that. But it's like, no, it serves its purpose of being entertaining. It's escapism. Whereas I think Batman, well, Dark Knight movies, and they're a bit more. They give you a bit more to mull over when you walk away with something to think about.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you wanted to stick to DC, it's like the comparison again with Man of Steel, because at the end of that film, they destroy half a city, and yet he's still a hero. It's like, no, you're both fucking. At that point, it's like two terrorists, fight each other because of the amount of like damage that there was. It's just you can't have that level of like damage. It's just like it's too much. You can't be just like destroying half a city for at the end of every film kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think, and it falls into like another adaptation like Transformers do it as well, where it's like at the end of every film it's like, oh, we're gonna go into this like fucking here's some random area. Oh, it's being destroyed.
Yeah.
It's just, fuck's sake. Like,
I think on balance, it's probably fair to say, as like actually consider just to use that point and to kind of reference against Marvel. Obviously, with the Avengers stuff, I think that's handled quite well, because obviously it starts being like, oh, you need to stop the Avengers because they're causing too much shit, basically.
Yeah.
So there is some obviously it's a consequence rooted in like complete fantasy, but it's like, oh, there is some consequence of what has happened in these films.
Yeah, there's a subplot to it. Yeah. I know that in Batman vs Superman, that it's the aftermath of Man of Steel that causes Batman to like be against Superman.
Yeah.
But it's kind of clodhoppery in its like application. I'm just trying to think of like, instead of something to film, like film to something else. So like it must have been like the mid 2000s that like every film had a game that came out that was
yeah,
like Shrek, like all of the Star Wars games,
The Matrix,
Matrix. Is it Revelation or something like that?
Yeah.
Another Rev word to go with all of the other Rev words that were in the Matrix sequels. Yeah, just loads of awful tie-ins. I think we've spoken about it before, but going back to the 80s, the E.T. fucking game that destroyed Amiga.
Yeah.
Or was it
Atari?
No, was it Atari? Yeah. So, yeah, just I can't think of any film tie-in games that you could say stand up if they were just released as a game.
No, yeah,
off the top of my head, anyway.
And I think the big flaw with movie games or tie-in games like that, it almost like hobbles the experience of playing a game, because it's like, well, we know what the ending's going to be. There's no sense of immersion with the character. It's like, I am playing this character that pre-exists in a movie. I know exactly what, like, there's no attack. Like, there should be some form of, in a good video game, there should be some form of escapism, where you can find yourself tied in with the character, or like absorbed into that character or the story. But when it's a movie
Yeah.
game, it's like, right, I know exactly what's going to happen here. Like, yeah, they might have changed it a bit for the game. Fundamentally, that narrative is going to follow the movie. So it's kind of like, oh, it's almost like just playing on rails, so to speak.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
I know, and often they're just fucking obviously churned out as a cash grab. So on a quality level, they're usually shit.
Yeah, they're rushed so that they can be. They're an afterthought, and they're rushed to hit a deadline for the. Either it's they need to be before the release or before the release of the film to increase hype, or they need to be like whilst it's in cinema so that like the interest is at its peak.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to think of like any. The Matrix game was separate. It was just in the Matrix universe, but that's the only one I can think of at the moment that was like not specifically directly to do with the plot of the film.
Yeah, I guess we actually do need to give honourable mention to GoldenEye because that is a great game.
Oh shit! Yeah, didn't even think about it.
GoldenEye, you're all right, mate.
Yeah, but then it's not for the plot. It's not for the single player. It was because of the fact that it was four player deathmatch in the pre-LAN days. Because I can't. PlayStation 1 had adapters so that you could do 4 people.
Yeah, the multi-tap. But
the N64, I think the Dreamcast had it as well, but it was later on.
Yeah.
4 ports for controllers, like on it. Although now that I'm thinking of Nintendo, I just thought of the Mario Brothers film.
Oh god. Oh, the Street Fighter film.
Oh yeah, I know, man. I feel it's oh fuck it. I'm having a really bad day with names. What's his name? The guy that plays M. Bison.
Oh,
also plays Gomez in the Addams Family.
Oh, piss! I can't remember his name.
I'm really sorry. That was his last film.
What, Street Fighter?
Yeah, before he was sick with I think it was cancer, like whilst he was filming. But you can tell that he's like proper chewing the scenery, like as M. Bison in that film.
Not to disrespect the dead, but what a stinker to go out on.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
but he's the only Gomez in my mind for Addams Family.
Yeah.
But oh yeah. However, thinking of another like beat 'em up game, the new Mortal Kombat. I haven't seen there's some footage that's come out. I haven't seen it yet.
Though. I haven't either.
But apparently it's très bien.
Nice.
It's exactly what we were saying about popcorn film. Apparently it's like exactly that. It's just minimal plot, maximum gore. It's like, well, yeah, it's Mortal Kombat.
That's what you want.
What the fuck do you expect? Yeah.
It's like, to pick another example where they got it, well, I think they just had an open goal and got it so wrong, was the Resident Evil movies.
But they're still the biggest grossing game franchise ever for film.
Yeah,
anyway.
I know, but people are easily pleased, aren't they? Look how much money Transformers made, to mention that again.
Oh, Jesus.
But it's like, you've literally, all you need to do is make a straight adaptation of this game and it will be fucking brilliant as a horror film. No, we're going to just go mental with it, alright? It's shit now.
Have I ever shown you the So I've said about Red Letter Media before, I think, but they marathoned because they hadn't seen all of the Resident Evil films, and some of them had never watched a Resident Evil film.
Right.
They did every Resident Evil film up until that point, and I think it was like 2015. And it gets to the fight scene at the end where it's like Wesker with the zombie dog, and he like backflips over bullets and stuff. And one of them is in absolute hysterics. He can't compose himself because every time that he like tries to simmer down, something else happens and he just like sets him off again.
So stupid.
It's just so absurd.
But the games started going in that stupid direction as well.
Yeah, I think that they've kind of
They brought it back to the horror now.
Yeah, Capcom went a bit squiggly for a while. It was like 5 and 6, I think, were not.
Resident Evil
right.
went and I don't mean this. Please don't misconstrue this, anyone. But like, Resident Evil just went really Japanese for a bit.
Yeah,
just fucking mental. It's just like, what is this?
Yeah, it went a bit all over the place.
Chris Redfield punching a massive boulder out of the way into a volcano. It's like, that can't happen. You can't do that as a human man.
They got it back on track with 7, and now 8's coming out.
Yeah. Because it was up to and including 4 were like bangers. Not including the like spin-off stuff like the rail shooters and stuff, because they were pretty cack. But like the main games.
Yeah, rail shooters are rail shooters. Time Crisis, Land of the Dead. Land of the Dead?
House of the Dead.
House of the Dead, that's it.
Banger.
Apparently they're making a House of the Dead film, I think. Or they're bringing back House of the Dead as a franchise. I can't rember.
They made a House of the Dead movie once. It never got released in cinemas because by all accounts it's atrocious.
Yeah,
they use clips from the game in it.
But that's an Ule Roth film, and he did the Alone in the Dark adaptation as well, which is also cack.
Fucking hell!
And Alone in the Dark was a game that scared the shit out of me when I was really little, because my dad played it when I was like 2 or 3.
Which one? Because they did a few.
The first one.
Oh, okay.
Literally the very first one, like in 19. So full disclosure, born in 88, so it must have been. And I moved away from London in 1993, so we're talking like 91, 92.
Yeah.
He was playing it, along with Wolfenstein and Doom.
Nice.
So we're talking that era of games.
Yeah.
Doom, another fucking... I really enjoyed the Doom film.
It's fun.
I know that like they had to fuck around with the fact of the hell part of it.
Yeah.
Because of America.
I was about to say America. So I'm going to see what Aaron says first.
Yeah, because of America.
Yeah, we shan't be having that, thanks.
Yeah, so they got cold feet about that, and they made it so that it was like, the previous people were mucking around with genetics, not the fact that, well, you've played the current Doom games, and it expands more on what like the actual stuff that was going on with like tapping energy that was actually souls, basically.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was all right. Like it's based more in like Doom 3 in regards to the monster, how the monsters look.
Yes.
Which I think threw a lot of people off, because people remember the original Doom style, things like Pinkies and Baron of Hells and things like that. They weren't so used to like the Doom 3 style Pinky, which is what ended up being Pinky in the film. Minus the wheelchair part of him in the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but it's a perfectly serviceable film. Yeah, it's definitely not fucking Alone in the Dark, which is fucking awful. And yeah, I remember that House of the Dead film now. And yeah, it's fucking crap. Like, it's so bad. You've reminded me that they actually did use fucking footage from the game.
Why did there must have been someone who said, maybe that's not a good idea, Chief. But don't do that. But
time.
I don't. It's blows my mind.
Imagine doing that in the Tomb Raider film with Angelina Jolie. She's just like bapping something off, and then just like fucking T-Rex from the game. Just they're like, oh no. Just green screen her like in Lara Croft's place, just moving around with the guns.
Amazing. Look at the polygons. Bloody. Funnily enough, they like Tomb Raider, like kind of the games kind of fell off around that era.
Yeah.
The developers like lay a lot of the blame at the door of the film and the reception to the film.
Oh, really?
It's like, well, the film didn't make you make shit games, but I can kind of see maybe it reduced people's appetite for new Tomb Raider games. Maybe they're just passing a buck, I don't know. because the recent ones are pretty decent, to be fair.
Yeah, they changed everything over though. You have to. The thing is that like Lara Croft is a very 90s protagonist. So like, oh, we're being progressive and having a female protagonist. So apart from the fact that you've completely sexualized her,
Massive tits. Like,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
it's like, oh, look, part of the promotion material is literally a nude photo of a fictional computer character on a poster.
So weird, isn't it?
I'm making the OK symbol.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. How incredibly 90s.
It's like, right, we've got this level's in the Antarctic, what we're wearing. So I've got a big old Antarctic explorer's coat and some mini shorts. Wicked. That's realistic. It's like the fighting games as well. Like
Soul Calibur was the worst for that.
max armor, G-string. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Dead or Alive, awful for that.
Oh, they did a volleyball, didn't they? One, I think.
So-
I remember having that in a fucking magazine. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
So
It's like,
bad.
oh, look, there's an upskirt angle on the camera. It's like, no.
Not even just saying this just to try and like get points. I couldn't give a shit. It's just, but even back then, I was just like, this is never had the games. Obviously, I used to get the video game magazines and stuff. It's just this is just odd. Like, why? Like, I just want to blow things up.
Yeah. There's, I don't
Like
know. It's fucking...
in games.
There's
Full disclosure, I'm not a pyromaniac.
I feel like that there was a Dead or Alive game at some film at some point.
Yeah, there was
of a similar low budget level. So, Devil May Cry had a animated series that wasn't too bad.
Oh, okay.
Thinking about it, basically, the plot doesn't tie up to the game, but it's essentially Devil May Cry as a business, because he was meant to be a demon hunter, like a paranormal investigator. That was his shtick, like at the beginning of the game, is that you're ringing him up and he is a paranormal investigator. So that's what the animated series was. It's like someone calls him out and the episode is him investigating someone, and invariably he has to battle summon, and then that's it. And then maybe it'll go over a couple episodes, maybe it'll be one episode, and yeah.
Should have got Derek Akora on board.
Same colour hair.
R.I.P. This is just reminded me. It's been going on for years now, but they keep every now and again it will surface that someone's agreed to it, or a director's been signed up, or they've cast someone. And this is about doing a film adaptation of Metal Gear Solid, and I'm like, I really want it, and at the same time, I really don't want it, because I know you're going to make it. You're going to ruin it.
That was for a period of time. There was like an announcement, like every 6 months to a year, about there being a live action adaptation of Akira.
Yeah,
and I had exactly the same thing. It's like, I want to see it, but at the same time, I know you're going to fuck it up.
And again, this is me being like, I know best. So basically, it's the same. It's the same thing with Resident Evil. You've got an open goal. Just adapt the plot of that first game.
Yeah,
and it'd be amazing. It moves. It works like a movie. It's written like a movie. Like, it's got the homage to, like, it's got the little homage points to the 80s action movies and stuff. It'd be fucking great. The plot of the first game is excellent. Like, it's before
don't even need a ridiculous budget for it, because it's all internal.
Yeah, like, fucking hell, if you want to get Michael Bay to do Metal Gear X, wicked, do it. Like, sweet. But like, that plot is self-contained. You don't need to cross over into anything else in that franchise, because it does go a bit fucking bonkers, to be honest. Wicked characters, like, it's done. But they won't do that. I know they'll go fully off the deep end with all the mad shit, and I'm just like, why have you done this?
Yeah.
Like, basically, you need to go back in time. You need to go 40 years back, get Kurt Russell to play Solid Snake, because that's who it was based on.
Yeah.
And it'd be fucking great. But it would be, it's just going to be a mess.
Yeah, it would be a massive mess.
And I will be sad.
My brain just... I was thinking of something just then, and it's like completely gone. I was just thinking of an adaptation of something. Oh, Judge Dredd. Like, the thing is, I like both Judge Dredds.
I don't really remember the first one. I saw it when I was a kid, and I've not rewatched it.
It's campy.
Yeah.
It's very campy, but...
The recent one, recent, obviously a few years ago, wicked.
Yeah, like tonally, they're very different. When we're talking about like gritty compared to like another thing, that Dredd is gritty.
Yeah.
Is founded in reality, like very much destitute society kind of thing. However, visually, Judge Dredd with Sly Stallone is closer to the source material, even though everyone shits on it. It looks way closer to what the comics look like. Also, I feel like that everyone gets pissed off with Judge Dredd because he takes the helmet off.
Yeah, that's a criticism.
Which was why the conscious decision was made that in Dredd he doesn't take it off at any point.
Yeah.
And it was lower budget and like less set pieces, which is why they did it in the building. Plus, the guy that did Raid was doing it, and it's like, oh look, it's a sci-fi The Raid.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's work from the bottom of the block to get to the top. But it again, that works as like a self-contained story in a larger universe.
Yeah,
because it's like honing in on one building in a myriad of lots of other buildings. Whereas Judge Dredd, the film, kind of goes all over the place, and they're trying to get bits from a lot of other different things in. So like Cursed Earth, the Angel Family, Janus, like his clone brother, so that he can use the gun. Like, they're hitting a lot of things in that film, and that's why I think people dislike it, apart from they didn't like the tone. But they were picking a lot of things off and trying to mash it together, and then because they were doing that and probably rushing through bits that people have invested a lot of time in reading, they've just been like, I don't like the way you've done this. Whereas Dredd was kind of completely its own thing. Like, the story itself, as far as I'm aware, wasn't really based on anything apart from Anderson being psyops, or she creates psyops. She's like the first psychic judge,
right?
But she's the one. So when they proposed that as a trilogy, it was going to be that they were going to start doing the stuff about Judge Death, which is, I think, Anderson, because of her psychic abilities, inadvertently brings Judge Death into that reality, along with the other three death judges. It's like Fear. I can't remember the name of the other two. It's like Death, Fear, Pain, and something, I think. And she supposedly inadvertently, by using her powers, brings these entities in.
Okay.
And then it was going to be Anderson and Dredd versus those four, essentially. But that never happened because they didn't make enough money for them to justify doing 2 and 3. But spoiler alert, in the comics, Anderson is racked so much with guilt that she commits suicide. And Dredd finds her in her apartment hung.
Stinker.
Yeah. Don't see that in your Marvel comics very often.
No.
Bloody 2000 AD. Another, like, so not game to film or film to game. Warhammer games and that IP into video games.
Did you ever play? I can't remember what it's called, but it was like the FPS game on PlayStation 2.
Dawn of War was PC, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You FPS Fire Warrior.
That's it. Yeah, that was pretty sick.
You played a Tau.
Yeah.
That was pretty well done. Yeah, it was Epic that did that.
Yeah, it was actually a really good game.
And on the PlayStation 1, they did Space Hulk, which is based on a spin-off game called Space Hulk, which was very similar. It's like a squad of Terminators against Gene Stealers, and it was basically like you go through the corridors to get to the objective, and then you'd have like almost like a turn-based parry strike system.
Okay.
Against Gene Stealers.
There was one on PS1 as well. I think it was called like Shadow of the Horned Rat or something.
So that was a Warhammer Fantasy one, I think.
Yeah, and that was like it was a bit like old Warcraft, like OG Warcraft. But
in regards to it being like a real-time strategy.
Yeah. It was good. It was pretty bloody difficult, actually.
Yeah, they had a couple, I think, on the PS1 like that. And then Dawn of War was a RTS, but for the Warhammer 40k stuff. Then they did Space Marine, which I think was for the Xbox 360, PS3, if I remember correctly. Which is a pretty good kind of run and gun, like third-person shooter. Where if you went in and did melee kills, you regained health.
Oh, nice.
Similar to like Doom 2016.
Yeah.
Is now, but before that. And I guess because we're running out of time, but like the last thing I was going to say is that obviously Warhammer's a game, but to flesh it out, they have their entire like book division.
Yeah.
Where there's fuck knows how many books Black Libraries put out now, but they seem to release like 7 or 8 every couple weeks.
Bloody hell.
Of novels.
Yeah.
For like either Age of Sigmar or 40k. And it's just such a large amount of text that I can't think of any other universe that has as much written about it. Like, I would surmise that potentially, in regards to density of text, 40k has more written about it than Marvel.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that Marvel goes back to like the fucking 30s.
That's crazy, actually.
But there's just so much text to do with it. I think they've got to a point now where someone couldn't read all of it. I'm sure that someone could like dedicate their life to it, but like, I mean, someone working a 9-to-5 job that could like, I don't know, read like 100 pages a day.
Yeah.
I don't think that they could do it. I don't think they could read all of the books that are available for it.
That's insane, actually.
I would say that is the largest fictional universe going.
Yeah.
In regards to stuff written about it. Like, I know that there's a lot of like Star Wars, but Star Wars stuff is quite small in scope. Because you're dealing with like interpersonal conflicts predominantly.
Yeah.
Whereas, and Star Trek is kind of similar in the fact that you're dealing with delegations of people. Whereas a 40k, there's no interpersonal really at any point. It's like world-ending conflict a lot of the time. Unless you start talking about stuff like Necromunda, where it's like gangers.
Yeah.
And then you can get down into that point of like gangland violence. But the meat and potatoes of the lore as a whole is kind of big, all-encompassing, world-ending violence. One last one that I was meant to say about is Alien Colonial Marines and how badly that was received. and then when Isolation came out, how well that one was received, because that was two games tied to a franchise that like came out one after the other.
Yeah.
And I know that there's like a load of stuff to do with Colonial Marines got fucked over like during the development process with various things going on between like developers. There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happened with it that like fucked it up. But if you look at the tone of the games, Colonial Marines was like an action shooter where you go in with a squad and you've got your weapons and you're shooting a lot of xenomorphs essentially. Compared to Isolation, which is a survival horror where you're on a ship predominantly unarmed, having to avoid one xenomorph.
Yeah.
Which I think tonally is a lot more in keeping with how people think of the xenomorph.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like, when it comes to that creature, I'll say character, but I guess creature's a better word in this instance. You shouldn't feel safe like around it. No. Like and obviously I don't mean in reality, but I mean in the game. You shouldn't feel like, it's fine. I can easily like just gun through these things, because it's like the ultimate fucking apex predator, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
It's meant to be that one of them can just absolutely destroy an entire ship.
Yeah. Also, spoiler alert for anyone who's not played that game. I've not played it, but I've watched a lot of it. There's a point going through the game where there's a fucking second xenomorph on the ship.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's like there's no indication until you actually stumble across it, and it's like fuck, like.
Oh no!
Yeah, the big poo.
Yeah. Code Brown. But yeah, I guess on that note, we should like sum up for today, because we're getting to the point where we need to fuck off and do something else. So I hope everyone enjoyed our rambling of adaptations, good and bad, and what we kind of think of them, and kind of went on a weird tangent as per usual with stuff like that. I don't think we summarised whether or not it's good or bad to do adaptations. They're never going to stop. There are good ones and there are bad ones. So
that's it. It's not a good or bad practice in and of itself. It's just like there's better and worse ways to do it, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, that was it. One last one before we go. When I said about that, normally when things are tied in but they're not directly with the game, are better. The exception to that rule is Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy did the first Final Fantasy film, which I've now forgotten the name of. I had it in my brain and now it's gone. With the hyper-realistic CG style stuff. People really didn't like that, and I think predominantly they really didn't like it because it wasn't tied into any Final Fantasy universe.
It wasn't Advent Children, was it?
No, Advent Children's the 7 one, which is what I was about to say. I can't remember the name of the first one. Whereas Advent Children was Final Fantasy 7, but like a continuation of Final Fantasy 7 after the game.
Yeah.
Was it after the game? Yeah. Yes, because Kadaj turns into Sephiroth with the remnants of Genova. So it's like post the game. And because they had that universe to build off of, and it wasn't the game, it was like a continuation of after the game. It just went down so much better because they had all the characters, they could deal with it and everything like that. And I find it to be a very enjoyable film compared to the first one, which was just tonally a bit weird. But yeah, right. Let's fucking do one and go. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We will hopefully see you all next week.
Cheers, guys.